America, stop this killing. Is Ukraine becoming the 51st state? This is Eurydice Eve. Mass intrahuman murder starts with a zero-sum agrarian view of life. My gain is your loss. All resources have already been divided and accounted for. Borders have already been drawn, and might is right. There is no new wealth, so we must fight over what there is if we want to turn around the old hierarchical order of what we inherited from our ancestors from the past and make a better life for ourselves and improve our odds, because the past trumps the present. That's the zero-sum agrarian view of life. We live in the industrialized, globalized, digitalized, meta society of the 21st century, but we're still stuck in the agrarian view. With that false start of the agrarian civilization, we use our civilizational skills developed to collaborate and bond and increase our odds of survival to demonize each other instead. Basically, war is sinners punishing other sinners for sinning differently. Period. But the agrarian, border worshipping little settlements loved war, because war was how they settled their affairs. Since its founding, however, America was conceived as a new world nation, a different nation. The American Revolution defied the system of imperial colonization, a monocultural regime control that perpetuated the agrarian patriarchies and replicated them on cross-continental scales since Alexander the Great conquered 3 continents and merged Greek culture with local customs. From Alexander, we had Rome, and from Rome, we had the Catholic Church, and from the Catholic Church, we had the British Empire. From the British Empire, we had the conquest or the discovery of America, and medieval humanity woke up to the reality that the earth was round, and a vast mass of fertile land lay on the other side of the known and thus civilized world. With America's discovery, the world woke up to the mind-blowing reality of a vast, resource-rich and energy-independent landmass on the other side of the known and divvied-up world. America was thus conceived as an enlightened, new nation, different from the old hierarchies that generations of us immigrants have been escaping from. Ever since its founding, America contradicted the old model of limited resources, your gain is my loss, all borders have been drawn and we must fight over every inch, God-given right to rule type of nation. America thus changed human consciousness. This new nation inherited patriarchal injustices, yes, like slavery, female oppression, indigenous people's oppression, but slowly ended them at a great cost to itself, one at a time. Then, in the 20th century, America fell into temptation. America learned from war that if it put aside its founding principles and adopted the methods of the tyrannical bullies that ran the old world, it could rule the world. In World War II, having sacrificed a lot of its population to save Europe, in a war whose theater was an ocean away, America learned that by virtue of its size, diversity, state system, and immigration-driven heterogeneity, it was better at world warring than other nations. Victory gave America global prestige and entry in the great powers club that ruled the world. What Woodrow Wilson had failed to achieve with ethics and ideas, Henry Truman achieved with military technology and nuclear bombs. America, war-weary and war-fevered, fell into temptation in 1945, ushering humanity into the nuclear age when it dropped the bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It has been corrupted by patriarchal lust for power ever since. Being the leader of the world, more euphemistically known as maintaining world order, has become America's self-destructive obsession and addiction. Since World War II, America has become addicted to proxy wars. It fights to sustain the feeling of global control that feeds its high, even though it is antithetical to its sense of itself and its founding mission. Whether it's North and South Korea, North and South Vietnam, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Syria, Libya, Bosnia and Croatia, Kosovo, Herzegovina, Colombia and El Salvador, Ukraine and Russia, the proxy allies and foes are culturally inscrutable to America, so its leaders depend on the proxy leaders' proclamations to even pick a side. The proxy leaders have ancestral resentments and territorial or economic interests, and so they make themselves the proxy in order to get help from America. America advertises itself as the safest, strongest, richest nation on earth every time it wins another war. It's a Faustian bargain, because every time it wins one of those proxy wars, America loses a bit of itself, loses its awareness, its consciousness of what the American experiment is about, and becomes the same as what it left behind. It becomes assimilated by the old world. I woke up today to this Reuters headline. Ukraine says Russian shackles worse than missiles 6 months after invasion. Of course, by Ukraine, Reuters means the government of current ruler Vladimir Zelensky, who said that Ukraine was reborn when Russia invaded it 6 months ago, as he marked 31 years of independence from the Soviet Union with a vow to drive the Russians out. As a gift for its 31st Independence Day, Biden gave Ukraine another $1 billion and Putin sent another 137,000 Russian troops into it. Drama is addictive because it triggers our sense of fear and awe. As it turns out, the Game of Thrones is even more exciting when it's real. The drama is even more intense if we gain or lose something. If we have a team that we cheer for and a villain that we can dread, even vicariously. That is why, having just pulled out of a 20-year wasteful proxy war and nation-building experiment in Afghanistan, America turned around and enabled another proxy war. 3 months after the awkward optics of withdrawal, America resumed its habit. It's using again. When it's at war, it pounds its chest on the global mound like a monkey and feels powerful. The dopamine release is exhilarating. That rush is why America, a nation that has never been invaded and thus has no actual justification to be invading anybody else, keeps getting entangled in the fistfights of the old world. America encourages the old addicts to act as its stand-ins so as to get dollars and weapons to keep fighting sectarian vendettas that they have been addicted to for thousands of years, when America is supposed to be absolving us from these ghosts of the brutal past. It's so disappointing. Millions like me came to America to be postnational. We risked privation and loneliness, humiliation and deracination, loss of identity, loss of family, loss of language, to live in peace. But the heady action-reaction, tit-for-tat excitement of warmongering grabs and keeps our attention on our newsscreens where it's readily monetizable, so the corporate economy pays for the drug of war in exchange for all the PR it gets. And the military-industrial complex wants all the extra money to bloat up its defense budgets. And so we're spending now more and more US tax dollars to destroy Ukraine, missile strike by missile strike, and to defend 31-year-old borders drawn by Soviet bureaucrats. We bloat our deficit and we don't care who will pay to rebuild Ukraine or how Europe's relapse to ultranationalist intragenerational hatreds will end. War in the West feels even more real than war in the East, so the high is more intense, and that's all that matters. Vladimir versus Vladimir. The war of the Vladimirs. Ukraine declared independence from the Soviet Union in 1991. After its population voted in a referendum, Ukraine became a democracy in name and a kleptocracy in fact, a Greek word. The rule of thieves, also known as strongmen. They fought over the resources that had belonged to the collapsed communist state, which had confiscated them from the people. Zelensky provoked this Russian invasion by flirting intensely with NATO and Europe, and then by shutting down the opposition press and arresting its owner, who was his main political rival and who was Putin's close associate. Putin is the godfather to the man's daughter. So basically, Putin went into de-Zelensky Ukraine. That's what denazify meant. That was all he wanted. If he had brought down Zelensky's government and put in its place one of his puppets, he would have gone home. There would have been no such war. But Zelensky, a trained actor, played the superb sacrificial martyr, taking on our collective sins so we don't all have to hang on the cross of war, and America was hooked. In Zelensky's nightly story, Ukraine is saving the rest of us from Russia's imperial tanks, and America is saving Europe from the Nazis again. In both Vladimir's narratives, everyone has a World War II part. It's like a historic reenaction out there. I guess we're nostalgic for World War II because the stakes were high and good and evil were more clear. Meanwhile, the black market is getting flooded with cutting-edge weapons. People are getting killed and maimed, tortured and raped, and America is financing it all. America's addiction to grandstanding on the global stage, even at risk of nuclear war, is how the old world is subsuming the new world, and with it, our hopes for a better future.